Welcome to the Let's Eat Grandma Career Warrior Podcast.
All right, welcome to the 49th episode of the Let's Eat Grandma Career Warrior Podcast, where our goal is not only to help you land your dream job, but to help you live your best life. It's that time of the year. College students are graduating, including my own little sister, so I was inspired to create this episode for you up-and-coming career warriors who are out there to get that first serious job. Maybe you're just graduating now and are in panic mode because you just don't have a job yet. Maybe you're entering your final year of college and now is the time for you to start thinking about getting that package together. Or maybe you're just that proactive that you want to be a mean, lean resume machine. Well, listen up. Now is the time to turn your volume up and hear my best 3 tips for you as a college student for your resume. As the founder of Let's Eat Grandma, a resume company, I have learned some really solid best practices that can get college students noticed and eventually hired. We are going to talk mostly about the materials themselves, and if you haven't listened to our previous podcast, number 48, we delve into some really good stuff, including job search strategy, cover letters, what you should be including on your LinkedIn, and how to keep your energy and motivation up as a recent graduate or college student. So put on your cap and gown because today you're going to graduate with a degree from Career Warrior University. Before we launch into this episode, I can't thank you enough for your loyalty and support as this podcast has grown over the last half year or so. I'm just going to start reading some 5-star reviews, and one of my favorite ones is from Colvenier Solutions. It's entitled, Live Your Best Life. It reads, I had the opportunity to attend one of Chris's meetups and loved his energy and enthusiasm. Since then, I've been listening to this podcast and have found the stories and guest interviews to be not only great career advice, but also to give positive strategies for finding your own passions and living your life to its fullest. Highly recommended. And to that, I say thank you so much. It means the world that things like content like this, like podcasts, meetups, are actually changing your job search. And it gives me such a good feeling of joy. And this actually makes me realize that this actually is my dream job. So thank you for that. And if you really would like to write a review, I would love to read these out loud in our next few episodes. All right, so I have a story. The year was 2013. It was my senior year at university, and it seemed like all my friends were talking about was their job search. Whether it was an interview that my friend had at Goldman-Sachs or how many resumes my colleagues were just shooting out. Does GPA even matter? What kind of job should I actually apply for? All of these thoughts were just racing through my head as I wondered what would be in store for me next year. The truth is, for most people, it's not so easy to get a job after college. In fact, some people really do struggle. So my hope is to give you just a little bit of a boost with this episode by helping you to vamp up that resume just a tad. And the next few minutes or so, I'll give you 3 tips that could actually help you. And these are the 3 things I wish professors actually taught in college. So first piece of advice, we're going to speak to the concept of what happens if you don't have the experience. And I know a lot of college students are in the boat of wanting to apply for these first year jobs, and some of them are kind of ridiculously asking to have some experience, even though, you're just graduating. This is your first year out of college, so how can you possibly have that experience unless you were so blessed to have a solid internship or experience beforehand? My guess is that most of you college students are in the boat of just having your classes and your skill set and your side projects to work off of. So what I would focus first and foremost is beefing up that education section. I think the majority of college students have the opportunity to increase the education section. So it's probably going to be at the very top of your resume already. And I would venture to say that most of you students out there can include other things. Keywords, especially if you're applying for applicant tracking systems online, can be a really solid way of getting your resume noticed and put to the very top. Just a quick 2-second crash course in applicant tracking systems. It's a technology that will scan your resume for appropriate keywords. So one common thing that recruiters will type in will be position titles or nouns common to the position. So it's really important to make sure that you have the appropriate keywords in your resume to make sure that it gets to the top of these systems. Let's say you are applying for software developer positions or you're applying for technology positions, information systems, you may not have that title yet in your job descriptions or things like that. So the education section itself might be an awesome place to put that. So courses you've taken in the past, possibly the skills you're able to pick up. Things like that I think are completely appropriate to do if you're a college student. Now, again, if you're not a college student and you're listening to this episode, what I might tend to focus a little bit more on are your professional experiences. All right, focus on skills, focus on that education. And another example of something is we recently partnered with a coding boot camp. These are students who had no experience within that field. So one thing that we tended to focus on were projects. If, as a student, you were working on projects that are directly relevant to the place you're applying for, play that up in your resume. I cannot emphasize that enough because a lot of the times, like I said, these applicant tracking systems are going to be scanning your resume for the appropriate keywords, and employers are just looking for relevance to see that you have some experience. All right. Is that enough for that? That's what I thought. Cool. Number 2. All right. So let's talk length and substance. I recommend keeping it short. Most of you are one-page material, and I'm sorry. I don't mean that as an insult. I'm just telling you that most of you can stand to have a one-page resume. Heck, I even had a one-page resume for several years after I graduated college, because when it comes down to it, you want to make sure that your content is actually value-packed and you're not bleeding. You're not just giving too much information. I mean, just think about it for 2 seconds. People aren't going to spend very much time on that second page, if not at all. So make sure you have a one-page resume if you don't have years and years of experience that's relevant in your field. The big mistake that I think a lot of college students are making when it comes to what they include in the resume are they'll try to include too much. So too many experiences, internships, things like that, but they won't delve too deeply into those experiences. And I remember when I was coming up with my first resume, all I wanted to do was just show these employers that I had done so many things and that I was involved with a ton of different aspects of my university life. However, I think this expression came from a good friend of mine. It's people are going an inch deep, but a mile wide. So an inch deep means you're not giving too much substance, but you're trying to show a bunch of different things by going a mile wide. So I recommend as much as possible going a mile deep, but an inch wide. So what you do instead is you focus on a few key pieces of experiences that you've had. Maybe it was an internship, and you delve a little bit deeper into that experience. So let's say I'm graduating from hotel school, because I actually did back in the day, and I'm applying for hospitality type positions. Now, I could go in and put every single possible organization that I've been a part of in college. I could go in and put every single internship I've had, every experience, every project. But instead, what I want to do is focus on the number one thing that can show that I'm the best fit for the position. So in this case, it was an experience I had working for an internship. This was a operations internship I did for Starwood. Rest in peace. Starwood was once the owner of brands such as the W Hotel, Westin, and a bunch of other ones, but now Marriott owns it. So what I would do instead of having just like 2 or 3 bullet points for Starwood, instead what I would do is have 7 to 8 really solid concrete bullet points that showcase the skill set that's necessary for the positions I'm applying for. So customer service, thinking on your feet, doing any of the experience that the actual job posting would call for. So if it's a front desk position, I might play up the front desk experience that I got during my internship at Starwood. And numbers. Can't emphasize that enough, that you really need to make sure you have numbers, descriptions, and to really go into solid detail in those bullet points. Easier said than done, I know, but then again, you're trying to create a better than average resume, so you have to put in the better than average effort to get that resume. Final concept when it comes to including the appropriate thing in your resume, I'd say the majority of you college students do not have a summary of qualifications at the very top. And I don't blame you, because it's kind of this weird thing that some of us started putting, some of us didn't after getting that experience. I think a summary can go a long way. So basically, it's a brief overview of why you're the person that's qualified for the position. So I don't recommend going too long on your summary, especially if you don't have that much experience. I recommend just a few sentences really highlighting your best of the best. If you've never written a summary before, this is somewhat of a hard thing to describe on a podcast or an audio, so I'd highly recommend hopping over to our blog at letseatgrandma.com. We've written an article or two on how to write a good LinkedIn summary as well as resume summary. Just go in there and do a search and you should find it. All right, another common question and aspect of this is how relevant does my job have to be to my field of study? I hopped on Quora, I hopped on Google, and this seems to be a very common question that college students are asking. Heck, that was one thing that I was asking as I was graduating from hotel school and interested in applying for experiences that were not hospitality related. Well, here's what I would say to this. It is a little bit harder to apply for jobs that are not directly related to your field of study. I mean, let's be honest, it just makes sense logically. But one thing I would say to that is if you want to apply for a position that is unrelated, I highly recommend networking as much as possible because that's where you're going to have the most leeway. That's when people are going to give you the most opportunity or wiggle room, I should say, when it's not related to your experience. Tip number 2 for applying for jobs that aren't directly relevant to your field of study, it just goes back to the same principle of playing up the aspects of your experience, your skill set that are directly relevant. So if you've worked internships, if you've done projects before, if you've, just had that one random experience or volunteer experience that was directly related, that may be the one thing that you want to possibly bring to the top of your resume, bring to your summary statement of the resume, or even just highlight a little bit more to showcase that you're qualified for the job. So in that case, I highly recommend doing that. So you want to play your strengths and you want to emphasize your strengths and downplay your weaknesses. And this is marketing 101, and this is what wins over jobs. So final words of encouragement. This is it. This is your time to go out there and shine. And when you're getting those rejection letters, don't worry about it. Keep going, keep pressing on, keep redeveloping your resume. This is a great time for you. If you have to, you probably have a lot of time on your hands to redevelop your resume. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're just super busy like me and just choose a bunch of things to do. But point being, you have the energy. You have so much potential inside of you to go out there and land that first awesome job out of college. So just a word of encouragement, just keep trying. And after, 2 or 3 weeks of your resume not getting the results you want, and you're actually actively applying, maybe you write yourself a different version of the resume that might get you noticed. This is what worked for me, and this is what helped me land several jobs as I was graduating college. Like I said, timing-wise, if that's not you, if you're past college graduation, it's June, so most of you probably are, then don't worry, keep hanging on. There are a lot of other college students in the same exact position as you. All right, this was a super speedy Career Warrior podcast. I did that intentionally because I think you can absorb all the information you need within the short time frame. Like I said, super grateful for all of you, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if this is the type of material that you like to listen to, and leave a rating if you've listened to us for a while and you really enjoy the content. Can't thank you enough and appreciate every single thing you've done as a listener, and go out and be true warriors. And for more on your job search, make sure to check out letseatgrandma.com. That's where you can find our blog, where we post the podcast show notes and so many more articles that will help you in your job search. You can also check out our resume services if you are interested in getting your resume professionally reworked. And please make sure to show us some love by jumping onto iTunes and leaving us a rating. The support from my fellow warriors will show the world how great this podcast is and help other people in their job search. Pay it forward. Thanks, guys, for being true warriors, and thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week.